Right, today I'm going to be installing these lights here on an old Bronco. I think they're a little bit, been around a while. It says they're all season. Do they make lights that are only for some seasons? I'm just wondering. That's what the kit includes there. Looks pretty fancy, actually. 23-year warranty. They've probably been in this box for 23 years. I don't know if there's any kind of a date on this kind of stuff or not. Made in Taiwan. It's a 57 series. So, I'll show you the Bronco that these are going on, and then we'll get started. So here's the Bronco. It doesn't want any holes drilled in the bumper, so I'm going to try and build a bracket off of the original bumper bolts. These are carriage bolts, so I'm probably going to have to change the bolts to just regular bolts. But anyways, there it is. I'll show you how I'm going to build the brackets. I found this piece here. It's been off of something, I don't know. It's pretty bent up, but I think there's enough of it straight I could cut off the bent areas and make a bracket out of this. Let's cut it up. Let's open this box up and we'll see what's inside. Couple lights. Wires. Get amber lenses. Get the clear lenses. Boy, they were not messing around, were they? They're like rock covers, I think. The rock covers. I think the actual bulbs are glass. So I think you put these on to protect it from rocks. Got a switch. Relay, some zip ties. Boy, that's a modern switch. I mean, relatively modern compared to I don't know, maybe this isn't that old. I don't know. Well, the reason I wanted to get in here is that for this here bracket, I want to make sure that it's wide enough to cover the base. Let me show you. When I cut this bracket, I want to make sure it's at least as wide as this here. Otherwise you get some rocking action and you can get a fracture. So I'm going to cut them at least this wide. I think I can get a strip here and a strip here. I'm going to cut off this bent stuff first, and then I'm going to mark and cut one, and then mark and cut the second one. You know, KC lights, they're pretty iconic. They've been in songs, and they've been around a long time. And there's a lot more modern, cheaper light bars, LED light bars, that would outshine these by a couple miles. But for some people, nostalgia is worth more than functionality, you know. Yeah, back in the 80s and 90s, you had to have KC lights or you weren't cool enough. Had to be KC. It's plastic. 99% sure the bolts on the bumper are 1/2 inch. Brackets, they turned out okay. I don't think that chop saw is 100% straight. But the only person that's gonna get a really good look at this is probably a deer. The carriage bolt's not going to work because the square head won't fit down in that hole. So we get a regular bolt. So I just got some standard bolts. So this isn't really a typical front bumper setup. If you do something like this yourself, it won't be nearly as hard, but this truck here has this built into the front. They do that a lot in North Dakota. Pull behind a tractor or something. But I gotta get my big fat arm up through that hole, and I can just barely reach up there. This, we got all these bolts and stuff in the way, but I can get it in there. Well, they're officially no longer new in the box. So let's run some wires and see if we can get them working. We'll see if we can make sense of this. This will go to a positive, constant positive. I think I'm going to tap off of the solenoid. This is a ground. A little bit more digging and I found this diagram here. And it goes into more detail. Oh, the white is the high, low beam, or battery. So it's got multiple functions, so you can have it work in conjunction with your headlights if you want. I don't think we're gonna wire it that way. I think we're just gonna wire it to the switch. We got this solenoid here, and that runs right from the the positive. I don't see why we couldn't just go off of that instead of making a mess out of this. So here you can see the other side of that rubber dauber. I think we can just cut it off and it'll be bushing, and like you don't want the wires rubbing on the firewall itself. You want to have some sort of a cushion in there, keep it from arcing. So I'm gonna go cut it and see if I can get the wires. While watching this, I realized I should have left the head on that rubber dauber and just split it vertically, but hindsight is always 20/20. So there it's ran. I'm gonna secure it over here. There's a little hole right here by my finger. I'll secure it there. And make sure. Yeah, I'll probably jet over this way after that so it clears the hood, and then I'll go back. I don't know if this is gonna fit or not. I have to cut those off. This rubber's not stretchy anymore. You know what? I'm not gonna sit here and finicky with this for an hour. I'm just gonna cut these off, run them through. I am gonna leave enough of a tail on both of them that I can use some sort of a butt connector, heat shrink butt connector to hook them back up. Thanks, I appreciate it. So I was just sitting here at break time drinking coffee, and I picked the box up and I found 2002. So the box says 2002. There's a flyer in there for 2011. My boss bought them off of eBay 4 years ago. So it's really anybody's guess. I'll just take this here end and split it. I got that. Looks like the relay is gonna have, we got the ground for that. Saying the white coming off of, saying the white needs to go high beam, low beam, or battery. I don't know if I wanna, see right here? I don't know if I wanna tap into a wire up by the headlight on a vehicle this old. If I can find one really easily, Actually, look at this. We put these updated LED lights in. And if you look at this, there's some wire ends right there. And I wonder if I couldn't make something to stuff in there that would hold, but then I wouldn't have to, you know, cut into one of the factory wires or something. And these headlights, they're not cheap either, so I don't want to cut into those. But if I could just tap off the back of the end there, you can kind of see what I'm talking about. Like this end right here, if I could get something that just goes in there, clamps on, then I could do this without butchering any of these wires. So let me see if I can figure that out. I got to figure out which one of these is the high beam. You can skip this next part if you want. I'm just showing you how to find which wire is which for high beam and low beam and ground. I know which is which. I decided instead to wire it off of a parking light wire. That way the fog light switch would be activated anytime the light switch is pulled out. Watch for the end mark while scrolling to see the next section. Okay, so to figure out which one of these ends is a high beam and which is a low beam, I got the low beams on. I'll go turn the low beams on. So I got black, yellow, and red, but they're aftermarket headlights. So what we can do is we got the low beams on, and there'll be one hot wire and two that aren't, and then we can eliminate one wire, and then we'll turn the high beams on, and there'll be two hot and one that's not, and that'll eliminate, and that'll tell us which one. That'll be your high beam. So I went right to the battery with the ground here. It's not the black. Okay, there's yellow. You can have leaks and stuff like that, so you should always check it anyways. So yeah, there's no power on the red, power on the yellow. So let's go turn the brights on. I put the test light on the red one, and we'll see if that wire lights up. Yeah, lights up. So red is our high beam. So yellow and red was the second one. So actually yellow one's dead now, so it must, but we know the yellow is low beam. So I'm gonna put this here blade end. I'm just gonna stuff it behind, stuff it down in there. I think it'll, as long as it's got good pressure, it should be fine. It should never start a fire or anything or get too hot. Just to be safe, before I do this, I'm gonna safe. Before I do this, I'm gonna stuff the blade down in there and make sure it sits tight. Yeah, it doesn't sit tight. If I come up behind it, it sits tight right there on that side. So let's do that. Where the wire comes down, it sits okay on the back side of that. I gotta make sure when I'm cutting the white wire I don't cut my phone charger. I got my phone charger here. It's not a heat shrink end, but hopefully it'll do. Actually, I'm gonna go get the other type of this. Yeah, so I decided to use the female blade style, just because it's thicker and it'll wedge down in there better. Ow. All right, so let's see if I can get this in there nice and tight. Oh yeah. So I've got everything tied up here except the ends for the lights. So that's good news. One I think should be a lot longer than the other. Yeah, so this is for the left side, or the driver's side. You know, it's just fishing wires through. Make sure you don't you don't want to wrap it around the fan, and don't drill a hole through your hose here to tie it down. Just use some common sense. And if it's gonna shake and vibrate, on this it'd probably be all right. This is just must be a crank for the spare tire. But if you're gonna have a piece of open metal like this, I don't know if you can see it, I'll try and zoom in, but you can actually see a factory burr on there, and that'll act like a knife and cut this. So that's really the only thing you need to be mindful of. There's no right or wrong way to do this. Well, there's probably a right way to do it, but I'm gonna do it my way. You can rest on sharp edges like this as long as it's secure, as long as it's not vibrating. And then I'm gonna go down through there. Oh, they're see-through, so you can actually see them going in and make sure that they're plugged in. I'm assuming black to black and white to red. This is where I decided that I wanted it wired into just the parking lights. That way you could use it anytime the headlight switches out, whether it's parking, high, or low beam. A lot of times when it's foggy, you don't want extra light up high. Wired into the parking lights. I think that would be better. And that way, if you don't want your headlights on, you can pull your parking lights out and then it's controlled. The big thing is you don't want to have the cover on your lights and get out and the switch is on and you leave it for a day and then there's nothing. But let me see if I can find a wire to the parking light. That might be better. If I take this one. No. That's one of them crusty factory wires I was talking about earlier I don't want to mess with. If you look down in here, I really didn't want to do this, but you can see this parking lamp here. I thought about maybe wiring it into the parking lamp so you can pull the switch out on the dash, just the normal Bronco switch. You can pull it out one click for your parking lights, which would give you tail lights, and then you'd be able to switch on your these KC lights. You can actually see it's kind of frayed right here. It's not really the best. Let's see if I can get in there. You can see there it's frayed already. I hate messing with crusty factory wires, but I think this is one of those times where I'm going to do it. I'm going to use that Scotch lock to tap into that, and that way when he wants the amber lights, the KC lights, he can pull out to the parking position for park lights, and then he'll be able to run the fog lights if he wants them. So let's do that. I'm actually not a really big fan of Scotch locks. I found a lot of soggy repairs, wires that didn't work because they were wet and had corroded from a Scotch lock, and I dropped a little metal piece. So I decided to just poke a hole through the wire and tap into the parking lights that way. What I'm going to do is just slide this wire back a little bit. Then I'm going to take the test light. You've seen me do this on my Kenworth lights if you've ever watched any of those wiring videos. But basically just wiggle yourself back and forth. Wiggle a nice hole in there. And it didn't damage any of the wires, there's no cutting. And then take your wire you want to use, strip it back, twist them, and then push them through your hole you made. And then just fold it over. I'm gonna get a close-up of how I'm doing this. I don't know if you can see or not, but there's a hole right there. I just stretched the jacket back, and then I used the test light to just kind of wiggle back and forth to make a hole between the wires, and then I slipped this wire between it. Maybe I can pop it out so you can see. See? It's just a hole I augured with the test light. Then what I do is I kind of untwist it a little. I spread half the wires back around one way. half the other way. Meet them back on the wire on the other side. Twist and twist. Twist them together. And then just kind of lay that around, twist it around, and then just give everything a squeeze and pull that hole back together on the wire, and then just give it a quick 14-cent tape job. You don't want to get too carried away with tape. You don't want to put $20 worth of tape on a $10 vehicle. So now if you want to shut them off completely, you just push your parking light in. If you want just your KC lights, you pull it out once. The audio on this next part is terrible. Basically what I'm saying is that the switch is only activated when the light switches out, either in the parking position or in the high-low beam position. When the headlight switches all the way in, they won't work no matter what. Next, we're going to check them out and see how they look and see how old 1990s halogen technology compares to modern LED technology. So the KC lights are halogen, and the headlights on this are some super LED or whatever system. And before I put the lenses on, I want to compare light bulb technology that's at least 20 years old, probably designed older than that. I think their halogen was probably late 90s when they were designing that. I have no idea. To a modern LED light. I'm betting, I think that the headlights on this were cheaper than the KC lights, but he had to pay a lot because they're kind of hard to find like this anymore. So I'm going to do KC lights, then low beams, then high beams. I'm guessing it's going to be pretty pathetic. We'll see. Actually looks pretty bright. I'll do this again against the garage door here so you can see. That's low beam. Oh, I can tell by the garage door that just the basic low beams on these modern LEDs is already brighter than these halogens. No comparison, none whatsoever. You almost can't even tell that the amber lights are on. All right, for the garage door view, I'm going to turn off the shop lights, and we're going to do the same thing again, KC, and then modern day low beams, and then modern day high beams. Let me go turn off the lights in the shop. This isn't an insult to KC lights, it's just a difference in technologies, that's all. KC lights, low beams, high beams. These modern day headlights make those KC lights look like the battery's dying. And, you know, I know you're saying, well, the lights are on and the truck's not running, so they kind of are. Well, they're using the same power source, so let's go back in the shop a ways. We're going to do it in reverse. That's high beam. Low beam. And then halogen only. Alright, I'm gonna get the lights back on here. My boss is never gonna believe I wasn't taking a nap. what you're working with there, the amber. This is what the lights he wants on there. So I'm going to put the extra covers in the glove box. I'm going to zip tie these wires up, clean this mess up. I looked it up. There's a brochure in there that says 2011. And then there's a...
On
the flyer that came in that box. Why does your gas pedal shaped like a foot?
Bigfoot.
Does it make you cool? Yep. Yeah?
Did you know that?
No, I didn't know that. News to me. That's is that high beam or low beam? That's high beam. Then just go to park lights. Just push it, yeah. Brighter than the old ambers. Huh? That one's loose. I gotta tighten that one yet. This one here I gotta tight, but
that one's tighter because I was pulled on that one.
I need a 1/2 inch. I just want to thank my boss for allowing me to record this. This old 86 Bronco still needs a lot of work. I don't know if it'll ever get done. The functionality is the main thing. The boss man, he's not broke. He's got like a 2018 Corvette and a bunch of other cars, but he likes to drive this Bronco. Reminds him of his younger days. I think all of us can relate to that. Kinda? So real quick, here's the flyers that came in that box. I just wanted to kind of show you what was in there. All the different styles. Options in there. But yeah, on this flyer here, it says 2011. I'm assuming maybe that's when this was printed. And actually, here's this the 57 series. Actually, looks like these ones here. So yeah, I don't know. It's hard to tell. And then they have this flashlight option in there. I wonder how much of this stuff is still available, being it's been 11 years. I did do a Google search on the 57 series, and there's not, it's not as much as you would think. You normally hit something in Google and it comes up with 9 different options and prices and websites you can go to. But when I typed it in Google, it not a whole lot came up.